Already going to the stock was up a lot. It's up 19% on the week. Maybe the best thing that's happened to Intel in recent history is that President Trump picked on Lip-Bu-Tan. I mean, because that's what it looks like in terms of the stock performance.
And I think we had that. We've been having the conversation. It hasn't panned out. Now it's starting to. And if you think about Intel, could be sort of the Taiwan semi of Taiwan. Well, Intel could be sort of the same thing here in terms of the foundry business. It makes actually a lot of sense in terms of security, being domiciled in the United States, dominating here. And we've said that for a while. Now it's starting to manifest in the stock. And I don't think this is over by any stretch.
I mean, this had always been a pillar for a long time. And, Tim, we've been talking about this for months, maybe longer, about how, you know, it is a national semiconductor company. And now under the Trump administration, if he wants to bring back manufacturing here to this makes 100% sense.
But it makes sense, or it would have made more sense in the context of let's provide incentives, let's provide opportunities for access to either government funds or loans or grants. It's not taking a stake, and so as the guy that's been investing in emerging markets a lot of his career, when you hear a government nationalizing a company, stocks don't rally 8%. They usually sell off dramatically. So I'm not saying that this isn't necessarily good news. And I think it's interesting that the White House was effectively talking down Intel while maybe thinking about buying them. I think you've got a fascinating story because the Trump administration and a very different world order is very focused on national champion companies. And this is something that again, I feel like I've been used to dealing with, around the world. And that's fine. In fact, it may be the right move. Lip-Bu-Tan, who was known as Mr. Chip in China, I mean, the concerns that are coming out of, say, Ohio, I think are probably more. Ohio's a battleground state. It doesn't surprise me that making Intel and their lack of spending on more jobs in Ohio a potential target, and there's a whole political process that's going here. But there's no question that Lip-Bu-Tan has a lot of relationships in China. This is a U.S. versus China chip war and tech war. And I do think that it's not only not surprising, but it's appropriate that people should make sure that Intel is properly a U.S. company focused on U.S. concerns. And if it's more of a public, if it's more of a government-owned entity than a pure private entity, there will be that much more control. And maybe this is the day and age where we need to. But this is not conventional, and this is very surprising.
It is not conventional, particularly post-Great Financial Crisis. We were discussing during the Great Financial Crisis, the government took stakes effectively in a lot of companies, including GM and the financials, Karen. Mm-hmm. But that was during a time of crisis. And for this to happen outside of crisis is unusual.
I mean, maybe they think of it as a crisis, right?
Intel?
For Intel. Clearly, Intel has, the promise of Intel the last few years hasn't borne out, right? So, but you're talking about to save the banking system, right? They said every major, G-SIB had to issue a preferred to the government, whether they wanted to or not. And this is a very different situation than that. Although, I don't know what kind of bargaining power Intel has. I don't know if they want this. Maybe they'll think it's great. I don't know. But I don't think they have a ton of bargaining power. So it's interesting. It's novel. I wonder if we're going to see any more kinds of transactions. We haven't even seen one yet. It's the story of it. But
I think this is more strategic. This is not a state-owned enterprise. This is a stake. And MP, they did take a 15% stake in MP Materials. So he sees this as strategic. Rare earth, strategic. Chips, strategic. So if you come up with a bunch of different companies, he'll probably take a bunch of different other stakes. I don't really have a problem with it. I own Intel. So, of course, I want to see the stock go up.
And you owned MP.
And I owned MP. So for me, I invested around those strategic companies. As long as they're just stakes and not state-owned enterprise, I think I'm okay with it.
Right.